I wanted to do a video today on how I found out I was a writer, because I didn't believe it. In fact, I never thought I was a writer, and perhaps that's a challenge you have too. You may be drawn to the writing life. You may have this idea that one day I'm going to write a book. One day I want to be a writer. I've seen people get this misty look in their eyes about writing, and then they say, oh no, but I'm not a writer, I can't write. And then you follow things like this, the writing channel, and then you say, no, but I can't write, I'm not a writer. I've never shown any evidence of being a writer. Well, that was me. That is me. I was somebody who never thought I was creative. I never thought I could write. Never, never, ever once. And so I just settled into that thinking, oh, I don't have any creative ability. And then I would find myself sometimes saying, one day I'd really like to write a book. And I think a lot of people say that. But why? Why do we say that? Why do we want to write a book? I really don't know. I never delved into why I would say, oh, one day I'm going to write a book. But in my late 30s, I hit a really hard depression. And honestly, I think it's a change of life depression. We go through a lot of hormone changes and moodiness in our teens, and pretty much in our late 30s, we go through another change of life. At that time of our lives, we evaluate who we are, where we've come from, what choices we've made, and have they been the right ones. Even if you have accomplished everything you wanted to accomplish by the time you're almost turning 40, the chances are you will still evaluate, were they actually the right choices for you? Was that what you were supposed to do? And so I hit this pretty much days after I turned 38. And I started evaluating my life, and I started looking at regrets, and I started going through a really hard phase that lasted 18 months. And coming out of that depression and that difficulty, I knew inside of myself I needed a new lease on life. And what was it going to be? And I knew it had to be creative expression. There is so much healing that comes out of having a creative avenue in our lives. And that was an area I had shut down and shut down and shut down. And so I thought, I would like to paint. Maybe I should do watercolors. I've always wanted to learn to play the piano. Maybe I should do that. And then I thought, maybe I have something, a gift I didn't even know I had, because it's just so me. I don't even know it's there. And maybe I should look at something I already have and cultivate that before I start learning something new. And I started to think of the times I'd been complimented for my writing. Surprisingly, it was all business-related writing. When I had written letters, reports, anything related to business, I was often complimented on my writing. When I taught high school, I shied away from creative writing. I shied away from teaching any form of writing. I did it because I had to in my curriculum, but I never actually felt comfortable doing it. I really gravitated to teaching grammar. Grammar I could grapple with. Grammar I could come to understand. But creative writing was really something that was going to pull something out of me that I didn't think I had to deliver. Poetry and literature I could teach because it was somebody else's, and I loved to read and I loved literature. Poetry I found more difficult, but I could teach it because it was somebody else's work and I had a format of what I had to convey to the students. But when it came to creative writing, a wall went up. Something in me had shut down for a long time that I could even write. And so when I came out of this depression, I realized that there was this area of my life I had been shutting down. So I thought, that's it, I'm going to look into writing. Maybe I can write. I had also been complimented for years since we had emigrated to Canada from South Africa on my annual newsletter. People were saying, I love reading your newsletter. I love the stories you tell. I wish your newsletter came out more often than once a year. And so all of that, my business writing, this newsletter, had me thinking maybe I could write. Perhaps that's what I should look into. So I signed up for a writing course at the local college. Just a Saturday morning, a casual writing course with a writer, and I started to write. And out of that, I joined a small writing group, and I started to meet once a month and do writing there. And I really enjoyed it. But here was a sign that I was a writer, is that my husband saw such a change in me. He would say, you come home from your monthly group and you are just glowing. Maybe that's part of being a writer, is not just understanding whether I have the skill set to write, because a lot of that can be learned. It's an inner love for something that actually gives you life. And maybe that's what writing is for you. It's something that gives you life. You can learn how to use words. You can hone your craft and your skill. So many writing teachers have said that the pupils that have succeeded the most are not the ones that could write the best, but the ones that persevered. So if you want to persevere in your writing, even if you may not be the best writer, you become a really good writer. But really you need to have the love for writing to spur you on, because it's lonely, because it can be so easy to procrastinate, because it's so easy to get distracted. It's something that you're going to want to love and the benefit that it gives you. And I've really learned to embrace the writing life. I don't just write on what I put on the keyboard and on my computer. I write by living a life that brings me very attentive to where I am, so that it fuels my writing. So if any of this appeals to you, if any of this is of interest to you, do subscribe and click on the notification bell, because I do talk about the craft of writing. I talk about the journey of writing, and I also talk about the love of writing and how it can actually impact our lives. It's not always easy. It can be lonely. If you write a memoir and you've got hard stories, it's extremely painful, but it is so well worth it. So do follow along. I'd love to have you here with me, so that it's not so lonely, so that we do build a community and you get to write your story and embrace the writing life. I'll see you in that next video.